you through a very quick tour of the findings from a project that we've been working on across the last couple of years, looking at how radio drives online performance for brands. Now, at Radiocentre, we work to remove any barriers to advertisers using commercial radio. And one reoccurring challenge that we heard was that it was quite difficult to isolate radio's effect on driving online response. Now, that wasn't surprising to us. Of course, as we know, people are often busy doing other things whilst they're listening to radio. So therefore, when they're responding to an ad, that response is likely to be delayed. And of course, without any click-through links like you have with digital ads, any response is likely to come indirectly as well. So for this particular project, we set out to address these objectives, as you can see here. So we wanted to quantify the full effect of radio advertising on web traffic, understanding how it compares to other demand generation media, and really understanding how radio drives performance marketing effectiveness for brands, and identifying some best practice learnings. Now, for this project, we really needed to address the delayed and indirect nature of radio ad response. So we worked with Jason Brownlee from Colourtex, an independent research agency, and we used a multiple regression model approach. So, what do we do? So Colourtex, they proposed a self-tuning multiple regression model to help us identify the correlation of multimedia impacts, our independent variable, alongside web sessions, our dependent variable. For each of the campaigns we measured, the brands and their ad agencies very kindly provided us with either Google or Adobe Analytics data covering all of the referral sources that led traffic to their websites, along with daily media impressions for the radio activity and any other media channels that were running alongside the radio campaign, and then also the weekly media spend for these media channels. Now, the data that we collected spanned the full radio campaign period and a minimum of 2 weeks pre and post. Now, in addition, just for the radio, we also asked for the minute-by-minute data for web sessions and radio impacts as well. Now, this was really important because it meant that this more granular data allowed us to test that hypothesis about radio's delayed ad response effect, because we used a self-tuning regression model with an ad stock function to quantify that time lag between a radio going to air and for its full web response potential to be delivered. So here are the brands that we measured. So across this project, we measured in total 8 campaigns across 6 different media agencies. Now, it was a huge thank you to all the teams behind these campaigns and for their help in providing this level of data, obviously because without it we couldn't have delivered this analysis. Now, yes, this was a self-selecting sample, but there was a really interesting range of businesses, and they all collectively had a non-insignificant media spend of £21 million across the campaigns that we measured. Now, it's important to note that we excluded PPC spend and impressions, as these almost exclusively relate to converting demand generated by other media. And finally, as part of the analysis, to obtain optical statistical significance, we combined within the model the impressions of TV and BVOD, and also radio and digital audio. Now, for when we're looking at, or when we will see the effects of the audio, we label these as radio. Now, this does feel quite appropriate because 92% of that audio spend was on radio, and of course, as we know, radio is the prime driver of reach. Now, some of you may be questioning the robustness of this analysis because it is only based on 8 campaigns. It's okay, I'll let you off for questioning it, but it's important to acknowledge that what this sample might perhaps lack in breadth, it more than makes up for in depth of data. As big numbers. Across these campaigns, the model analysed over 7.2 billion media impressions against 195 million web sessions. And the models really demonstrated highly significant results from a statistical perspective. So based on this big data, along with the passive nature of the data set, we present these findings to you confident that they are fair, neutral and representative of how demand generation media, and in particular radio, deliver significant effects for performance marketing campaigns. So, the findings, cut to the chase, the findings. Okay, so I'm going to start with probably the most crucial of all the findings, looking at how traditional attribution approaches are completely and utterly miscalculating radio's effect on online performance. Okay, so my favourite of the findings, this is my favourite graph. Who doesn't have a favourite graph? Tyler. Secret, Tyler's got a favourite graph as well. I don't care if you judge me, I don't care if you judge me. So this graph, my favourite, is derived from the analysis of that minute-by-minute data. It looks at the cumulative build of effect of an average radio spot delivered by hour following its transmission, and the effect is expressed as a proportion of its total response effect. Now this chart, why I like it so much, is because it clearly proves the hypothesis that radio advertising does take time to deliver its response, on average 21 hours in fact. Now across all the campaigns that we measured, no matter what the time lag was for all the individual brands, what was really clear was that if a client is looking at a real kind of short-term window in terms of their attribution approaches, they would be completely and utterly excluded 92% of radio's potential effect on driving web traffic, as only 8% of a radio spot's full potential is delivered in that first 20 minutes following transmission. So this begs the question, how effective is radio if you measure it properly? But first of all, to answer this question, you need to understand the effect of demand generation entirely on performance marketing campaigns. So, we saw that incorporating predominantly offline brand building media really helped online businesses to grow their web traffic. And according to the regression analysis, demand generation media combined across all the campaigns drove an average uplift of 38% in daily web sessions. Now this represented, another big number, a total of over 30 million additional web sessions across all of the campaigns that we measured. So, how does radio perform within this context? Well, according to the same regression analysis, when its effect is accurately captured this time, on average, radio drove an uplift of 16% in additional web sessions across all of the campaigns that we measured. Now, so you can see that actually that's 16% out of the 38. You can see that radio accounted for over 40% of that total media-driven uplift in web sessions for these campaigns combined. So, to put this into further context, we know from all the media spend that the ad agencies kindly provided us that radio, including digital audio, made up around 20% of the total media spend. So when you can compare the proportion to total effect to the proportion to total spend, you can kind of get an idea of cost efficiencies that radio can be delivering for these performance marketing campaigns. But really, to fully understand the relative cost efficiency, and most importantly, those drivers behind it, we needed to really look at these campaigns at an individual level. So we did just that. So we compared the cost efficiency radio was generating in terms of additional web sessions in comparison to the other media channels that were also running alongside the radio in each of these brands' campaigns. And the analysis revealed that actually, on average, across all of those campaigns, radio was delivering web sessions over twice as cost efficiently as other demand generation media. However, as with any ad effectiveness study, especially one with a self-selecting sample, there's always going to be variance in performance across the different brands. But what we did see was that radio was more cost efficient than other demand generation media in the majority of cases. And most impressively, some of our highest performers, also brand A here, was 4.5 times more efficient than other demand generation media in driving those additional web sessions. So twice as efficient as the average and over 14 times more efficient than poor brand G at the bottom there, our worst performer. So what makes the difference? What makes brand A different to brand G? So we ran a little bit more analysis to really understand the difference in those campaigns. And what we saw was the top performing campaigns shared two main traits. First of all, they had a high weekly reach. Of course, makes complete and utter perfect sense. If you're expanding your campaign across a wider pool of potential customers, you're going to have better results. And then secondly, the creatives of these top performing campaigns featured distinctive and consistent audio brand assets really clearly associated with each of the brands. Now, we were not surprised by these findings because they are quite consistent with other projects that we've ran at Radiocentre. Okay, finding number 5. You're still with me? I haven't said a joke, you're still with me, good. Okay, as I explained before, people, they're busy doing other things whilst they're listening. So as a result, radio's response, it can be delayed. And because it is delayed, it's more likely to come indirectly. Which means that the full effect of radio or any offline media, really, can only be measured by looking at the changes in referral sources to a brand's website during the campaign period. And as this chart shows, the percentage of the additional traffic coming via those referral sources attributable to radio. So it clearly illustrates that radio is multiplying the effects of those pure play digital channels and really boosting the efficiency of the performance marketing campaign. Okay. Last of our findings, I told you this would be quick. It shows that radio is also boosting traffic directly to the client's website. Now, of course, this is increasingly valuable, especially as AI summaries are starting to disrupt traditional search strategies. So it shows another great benefit for advertisers using radio. Okay, so in summary, the most important finding from this project was if you're looking at radio or any offline medium with a short-term attribution approach, you'll be excluding a huge amount of web response. Because actually, if you correctly capture radio's performance, you can actually see that on average it boosts daily web sessions by 16% and more cost efficiently than other demand generation media. And also we saw radio's effect on driving those web referral sources and also boosting the effects of those pure play digital channels. So it's a huge workhorse, radio, a huge workhorse. Okay, I shall end there. I shall say thank you for listening.